All right, well, welcome everyone today. I'm Larry Pruss, and as you guys know, I'm the co-host of SRM Perspectives Live, and we are here to kind of discuss the intersection between traditional finance and emerging technologies. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Ashish Garg, the co-founder and CEO of Eltropy. When Ashish and his co-founder, Chandra Bhopal, got together in 2013 to create a text messaging solution for credit unions, they wanted to build something that reflected their love of education, but in a very focused, non-chaotic manner. They combined their significant educational backgrounds to create a communication solution that fosters learning in even the most cluttered environment. And so with that introduction, we'll go ahead and get started. Just a couple housekeeping reminders. If Victoria, you can pull that up real quick. There we go. So this is an open discussion. Certainly raise your hand if you want to be unmuted. And then we will be conducting some brief polls. So, feel free to answer that if you're comfortable. We will have Q&A at the end, but again, if you have a question, certainly just throw that in the chat. And then let us know your thoughts and opinions. This is a safe space. So we'll go ahead and get started just with a chart, and then I'll turn over to Ashish. But I think this is a really interesting one. It's from Time Magazine. I saw it a while back, but what it kind of outlines is how far artificial intelligence has come. So outside of a couple items, and this chart's probably already a couple of weeks old. They may already have surpassed it, but other than like say code generation and maybe common sense completion, which I assume is like creative thinking, the AI bots have already outperformed us on kind of everyday tasks, and that's going to be relevant, I think, for our conversation today. So Ashish is we're gonna start a poll here, and if Victoria, you can pull up that first poll just to kind of get the conversation started, and then I'm gonna kind of introduce you or turn it back over to you. But for those attendees, here's our poll. Is your company currently using either AI, exploring AI, or neither? So if everyone can just answer that. And Victoria, it's showing up as host and panelists can't vote. Is that something that?
Yeah, you guys can feel free to vote. You don't have to. Obviously, both of your companies are using AI. But I can end the poll in about 5 seconds. I can see people are still voting.
Yeah, since you launched the poll, I wasn't able to see, so I wasn't sure that people were able to answer that or not. So if you can kind of share the results when those things, when it's done.
Are you able to see those?
That's surprising for me. So maybe not so much surprising for Ashish, but very much surprising for me. So it's 82% are using AI, 18% exploring, and no one else fell in the neither category. So you're either using it or considering it. So Ashish, you and I met last year at GAC during a panel discussion with Kyle Hopman, who's now the vice chairman or the chairman of NCOA. He was the vice chairman at the time. And your company, Eltropy, see if I can get that pronunciation correct, was one of the few AI solutions that were represented in the room. And at the time, I was really surprised just how many credit unions had already engaged with your company and how far along those credit unions were in adopting AI. Because we get a lot of questions about like what's AI and what are the business cases. And so I'm always surprised by just how many credit unions have already gone down the path to employ AI and certainly some of the text and chat and even voice solutions that your company is working on. So I'm really looking forward to us having this conversation today. And I wanted to thank you for being on Perspectives Live.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm very excited to share my thoughts.
Cool. So let's go ahead and get started. So if you can just give us a little bit of explanation around the meaning of the name Eltropy. I think it's connected to learning. Is that right? And then maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, genesis of the company, and maybe some of the pillars of your DNA.
Yes. So again, my name is Ashish Garg. I'm the founder and CEO of Eltropy. Eltropy, as the word, is a pun on the word entropy. So when my co-founder and I started this company, believe it or not, 12 years ago, we were sort of looking at these mega trends that sort of are happening way back when. And what had happened was in 2013, the iPhone was about 6 years old. And what the iPhone or sort of the smartphone technology had done, it had opened up this gusher of knowledge or information that all of us have access to every single day at our fingertips. Which, if I were to give a contrast, Larry, when I went to school in India in the late 90s, internet was sort of fledgling at that point in time. If you needed information, you had to go to a library, find a book. You had to search for a book, then you had to find a page and a paragraph. It was very painful. So my co-founder came up with this sort of insight that, listen, in our lives right now, we are drowning in information. There are not enough hours in the day to consume everything that is being thrown at us. So we call it the entropy or the chaos of information. And our whole idea was, how do we solve this entropy and reduce this entropy in people's lives? And that's how we landed at the word Eltropy.
I like it. I like it a lot. So how is Eltropy different from any of the other AI solutions serving the market? I mean, we see a lot of providers out there. Seems to be new ones popping up every day. How are you different? Maybe what challenges have you seen in building your company, and like what solutions are you addressing for?
Yeah, so at a very, very high level, what we do is Eltropy. We are a conversations platform that sits between a financial institutions and their customers or members, whatever you want to call them. And what you enable is this communication or this conversation, this flow of information between a financial institution and their customer. That's what we enable. And we call ourselves a unified conversations platform. And that's what we do. So it's essentially whatever AI we are applying today is to help make sure that those conversations or that communication that is happening can happen anytime, anywhere. And if I may jog your memory a little bit, Larry, what used to happen is a lot of the credit unions and community banks that we work with, a lot of the delivery and customer engagement model was driven through branches. You have a branch network. Well, you come to a branch to deposit your check. While you're depositing a check, you have a conversation with somebody. Maybe you're looking for a car loan or a home loan, and that sort of leads to a warm lead. And then the credit union or bank will probably fund your loan if you meet certain criteria. And over the last, I would say, decade or two, sort of the branch traffic patterns have changed very dramatically. And then, of course, COVID came. And right after COVID, everybody, including me, we live in our cell phone. So, for example, my entire life is my cell phone. I want instant gratification. My phone is with me all the time. And it doesn't matter what I would like. I need it instantly on my phone wherever I am. And I call this the anytime, anywhere paradigm. So our mission is to help credit unions and community banks provide the financial services that they have, make it available to their communities anytime, anywhere using technology, including AI. AI is a piece of the puzzle that we bring to the table.
So AI is a piece of the puzzle. You've got a kind of a communication platform. You mentioned credit unions and community banks. I assume the big regional and the national banks maybe already have their own homegrown technology, or why are you serving the niche that you're servicing?
I think the large mega banks, as also the regional banks, have tremendous amounts of financial wherewithal. So either they build their own technology or they have large IT companies, a lot of them, by the way, from India, who build all the technology for them in a very custom manner. And it so happens in the marketplace, credit unions and community banks are competing in an open market. They also need the same technologies, etc., but they cannot afford huge capex, capital expenditures. So that's where comes a company like us. We build this technology for the entire ecosystem. We make it available as SaaS, software as a service, So subscription services, instead of CapEx, they can convert into OpEx and get access to the same technology and tools, a lot of times better than what the big mega banks have. And we make it available in a fairly democratic fashion to the entire long tail of financial institutions in America.
Like that. So what specific technology are you utilizing? If you can maybe talk a little bit about the tech stack. I know that you've made a few acquisitions, I think, in the past, one maybe called Lexop, if I got that right, which I think does collections, and another called POP.io, which I think,
Pop.io, yeah.
yeah, that was the video banking feature. So how did those acquisitions strengthen your solution, and what's kind of your tech stack look like? What are the specific technology solutions that you're offering?
Yes. So with that, if you'll please allow me, I'd love to share one slide because pictures speak louder than 1,000 words.
Yeah.
So what we have done, Larry, if you can see my screen, please let me know if you do.
Yes.
Yeah, we built what we call the best unified conversations platform for community financial institutions. And community financial institutions, for me, are credit unions and community banks. So we club them together. And what this platform does is the following. This is what you're calling the tech stack. So our platform has 4 different components. At the very base level, we provide communication technology. So for example, video banking, text messaging, web chat, voice or telephony, contact center voice, etc. So this is what we call the communication layer. So this is the way, let's say, a credit union member or a community bank customer will engage with the credit union or the community bank. So this is called the communication layer. On top of communication is where we add automation. So we have AI agents which live on top of this channel. So for example, one of our AI agents lives on the voice channel. So I'll give an example. Let's say you call a credit union's 1-800 number. You have a simple question for the credit union. But let's say you call that number at 6:30 p.m. after the call center hours. So Larry, any idea what happens today? Like if you call after call center hours, what happens?
Usually you get routed to someone in another country that doesn't know much about you, but is probably working with a screen that's got some information. Is that reasonably close?
Yes. Or more often than not, you end up getting a voicemail or you get a call back, et cetera, right?
Especially if it's your local community bank or credit union. They're probably not open 24/7, 365, right?
Correct. So what our AI agent does is that when you make that call at 6:30 p.m., it's an AI bot sitting on the other side, having a conversation with you, and you have to see it to believe it. By the way, if you're going to be at GSE this year, I'd love to show you what we have. This technology has become so good, so conversational, it almost talks like you're talking to a human.
Ashish, I do. I and my colleague Connor Heaton do presentations on AI all the time to our clients just to help them understand the solutions. And often I will co-present with ChatGPT. I call her Samantha, but it's so conversational. You really don't know that you're talking to an AI. And so I can only imagine how far you guys have come. And I always tell people, like, no matter what you think of the technology, whenever you looked at it last, even if it was yesterday, it's far advanced beyond where you're currently at, or what your view of it currently is that you don't really have a good view of it. You're kind of looking at everything in a rear view mirror. And so I can only imagine working in this environment where you've got that fast of moving, like, kind of technology innovation. It's amazing.
Yeah. So let's say you call it 6:30 p.m. Again, the credit union number, an AI bot will have a human-like conversation with you. This bot is also trained to understand what you're looking for. This bot is also connected to the back-end systems that credit union uses. For example, the core banking system or the lending system. So you have a question on, hey, what's my account balance? Or, hey, you want to move some money from one account to the other? Or, hey, what's the status of my loan? This bot is intelligent enough and connected enough, it can answer those questions for you.
And so is that via like API, or are you integrated directly with some cores?
It's a combination of both. With some of the cores out there, we have direct API connections. And with some of the cores out there, which are sort of very exotic or legacy, we use an integration layer provided by some providers out there to connect to those cores. But we do have real-time connections to these core systems and lending systems, so we can answer a bunch of questions which are simplistically done. Now, if the AI bot is unable to answer sort of a very sort of corner case or complex query, then the AI bot is intelligent enough to also help you schedule an appointment. So either you can get a call back, you can get a video call, you can schedule an in-branch appointment. So the person at least has some closure at 6:30 p.m. that fine, tomorrow morning, I can go and get this done very, very quickly. So this whole concept is called AI agents. And we have AI agents running on top of voice, on chat, also known as chatbots, on top of text, on top of video. And very recently, Larry, I spoke at a conference called Future Branches in Austin, Texas in December. And for the very first time, we showed AI agent avatars on top of video that can be deployed in branches. And we call them branchatars, for lack of a better word. And it's a corny word, but I'll still take some credit for that. So now please imagine you walk into a credit union branch at 6:30 p.m., the branch is shut, but you go into the lobby. What if you had a large screen and an avatar that looks like a human can talk to you, help you resolve some certain things, and maybe schedule an appointment for you? So AI as agents on all these communication channels. Does that make sense?
It does. I think I saw a video that you had done, and it was probably 2 years ago, where there was an avatar, and she looked really like very much like a live person. You kind of knew avatar, but that was a few years ago. And I say that because I recently posted on LinkedIn. I just for kicks, there was an app called HeyGen that I used to create an avatar of myself, and then I basically replaced it with whatever I wanted to speak about, and it would match the conversation that I was having with my lips and my blinking and kind of way I move my head. And I, if I didn't know and I saw it, I would have thought it was just a video of me speaking. I would not have known it was an avatar. So again, I can only imagine what your avatars must look like versus what I saw a couple of years ago, which was very impressive.
Yeah. So again, this whole category is called AI agents. I think you know this very, very well. But again, what we're trying to enable here is anytime, anywhere access. So 24/7, doesn't matter where in the world you are. It doesn't really matter. You make a phone call or a video call, you get 24/7 access to your money.
So do you limit some of the items that can be pulled from the core? So I presume there's some guardrails in terms of what those virtual agents can answer or can answer?
Correct. So each credit union has a certain protocol because there's also risk involved here, fraud involved over here. So what we do is each credit union or a bank has their own protocols around what do they allow. These tellers are what they're called to be able to answer. And there is a certain authentication methodology where you'll start with, let's say, something basic. Let's say what's your member ID and the last four of your social, or I'll send you a 6-digit code via text and you'll read that to me. Or as time goes, let's say you want to really move money, then I may do voice-based authentication or another biometric-based authentication. So again, step-up authentication, because at the end of the day, it's really about adding friction versus fraud, right? It's all about convenience and friction. So as dollars get involved, go higher and higher, and there's more risk for fraud, we add more friction over time.
Yeah, it seems like a good way to address it. I know one of the pushbacks we always seem to hear from financial institutions are around hallucinations and biases. How does your company kind of address those?
Yeah, so if you look on the right-hand side here, we've actually created an entire framework called Safe AI. And I'd love to share this sort of a QR code with you where you and your audience can sort of review this later. But we've actually essentially created 12 different policies and procedures. Think of them as guidelines based on which we build AI and leverage AI, which removes these biases that could exist out there. So essentially create an entire Safe AI framework of what AI can do or cannot do, or how we will use AI or implement AI or we will not, to make sure that it gets rid of hallucinations and biases.
Makes sense. Any other slides? I mean, you're welcome to share some more slides here. I certainly have some
Yeah.
questions, but
So I'd love to share with you sort of the thing that I'm most excited about is the following. So today, for example, Larry, if you were a credit union CEO and you wanted to get a pulse of how is your membership feeling, right? How are they doing? What do they think about you? How do you think credit union CEOs get that information today?
probably some spreadsheet that's probably a few days or a couple of weeks old of something that was gathered up of complaints and good phone calls or bad phone calls. I don't think they've got certainly a real-time view of it.
Correct. So usually you're spot on, but more often than not, what they're doing is they're doing surveys of the membership, right?
Yep.
So survey data, sort of surveys are done, data is compiled, and a report is presented to the CEO. But usually what happens when you're reading the report, you're looking 3 to 6 months behind in time, right? So our assertion is the following. Let's say in today's day and age, all communication that credit unions and banks are having with their members can be recorded in some system, right? So imagine I can record all the voice calls, I can record all the video conversations, I can record all the text conversation, right? Let's imagine we can record everything. And then any communication or conversation happening with AI bots can also be recorded. So please imagine we can record all of this. Now what AI allows us to do is to mine all this data. So for example, we can take all the voice conversations, convert that using AI to plain text, and AI also reads through the text and extracts two things: intent and emotion, right? So now please imagine you're a credit union CEO, you walk into your office, and every morning, what if you could give you a report of the last 24 hours, all the conversations that were had with your members or your customers, and what are the top 5 things they're asking for, and what is their emotion and sentiment?
Yeah, that would be really powerful.
Yes. And if I may please illustrate that using an example. So let's say the last sort of President Joe Biden, the Biden administration had forgiven student loans. I hope you remember that. Yeah. And then a case went all the way up to Supreme Court. The Supreme Court intervenes and Supreme Court said, no, this is not sort of against the Constitution. You cannot do things like that. So, suddenly now, people are on the hook for paying those loans, right? I hope you remember that theater, the political theater that happened.
So.
But now please imagine, as a result, people need some more money to pay back those loans. And now suddenly that credit union starts getting calls saying, hey, do you offer a personal line of credit? And now imagine we can detect that signal using AI and put it in front of the executive team of the credit union very, very quickly. What if then that credit union CEO and CFO and the executive team create new special financial products for their members that are much needed during that point in time?
Yeah, that's great because it allows you to kind of respond in real time to your member or customer needs with product enhancements or new products. And I would assume also adjust your marketing as needed as well.
Yes, you can adjust your marketing. For example, COVID came about, and remember the US government came up with a stimulus package, and there were these PPP loans that were given, et cetera, et cetera. So everybody had to scramble at sort of the last minute to get everything in order. So now please imagine we can get this information in the hands of executive teams at credit unions so they can react faster to the needs of common people. This is where I feel, Larry, we're in the phase 1 of AI. We're still building the foundation to collect all this information. Then we're building agents on top of that to enable conversation. But the real power of all of this is being able to assimilate all this information and creating insights and intelligence out of this, which allows for better product and service creation.
So I would imagine it would also impact like fraud or even your credit losses. I mean, you would be able to see trends, I would think, from that member customer communication that might be related to, again, fraud or losses. Would that be accurate? Because people are struggling with, from a financial standpoint, you would see that immediately if they were starting to have certain type of fraud that was hitting those accounts. Would the AI be useful in detecting that as well?
Absolutely, because here's what happens. As soon as fraud happens and people lose money from their bank account, what is the first thing they do?
Yeah, pick up and call their banker, right?
Bingo. Now imagine that call is being recorded. Now imagine you start seeing a pattern. Now imagine we can detect that and very quickly bubble it all the way to the executive manager saying, hey, something has changed, something is happening. Can you react very, very quickly?
Yeah, so you've constantly got a pulse of the member or customer. That's outstanding.
Yeah. So to me, this is really where we are heading. Right now, we are sort of in the basis of building that foundational layer of building those communication technology, being able to record all this information, putting out agents, et cetera, et cetera. But the real end game, according to me, is that intelligence and what it allows financial institutions to do in the service of the communities, which is what their purpose is.
That's excellent. You mentioned the last administration. One of the things that we've seen from the last administration to this administration was a big focus on, or more of a focus, I'd say continuation of the focus, but certainly more of a focus on ensuring that AI is a strategic interest for the US. And we've now got an AI czar. How might that impact your business? And I mean, I guess it'd be a really wild question to ask how it might impact credit union banks, right? Because we've also got a lot of other new regulatory heads and changes coming. The CFPB suddenly has been abolished, I think. That's the latest. I'm sure we'll see some pushback in the courts, but what does all that change and transition mean for your company?
I would say so far, Larry, quite honestly, CFPB was a very hot button topic for credit unions last year. So I'll just give an example. In January of 2024, I traveled a lot and I went met a bunch of credit unions. But credit unions were saying that, Ashish, listen, in the last few years, we credit unions are getting hammered on two ends. Number one, our interest income is down. Interest are all-time low. We had to pay so much money to get deposits, but we did a bunch of 30-year fixed loans at 3%. So our yield curve has become inverted. So interest income is down. On the other hand, the CFPB is really gunning for a fee income. So as a credit union, we feel cornered from all sides, right? Our incomes are going down. Regulatory environment continues to get more and more complex. Plus, we have technology costs, fraud costs, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very, very difficult period to do business in. And I'm talking exactly 1 year ago.
Yeah, it was, our clients told the same. It was really tough administration to work under. But not to get political, was the reality of it. So looks like we launched a poll, and the question was, as related to the new administration, do you think the new administration will have an impact on AI advancement? And everyone that answered said 100% yes. I presume you feel the same as way, and maybe you could elaborate a little bit on that.
So with respect to sort of AI advancement, I think I'd like to quote Kyle Hartman. Remember when we did that roundtable last year? It was fascinating what Kyle Hartman said. Kyle Hartman said, well, the internet started in America in the late 90s. The White House back then, so under the Clinton administration, created a website called whitehouse.gov, created 10-point rules of the internet. And the rule number one, the private sector shall lead the internet. And he said, if you think about it, America literally won the internet race, and the amount of value internet has created through e-commerce, through social media, through networks, through sort of social networking, et cetera, it's just staggering. Not trillions of dollars worth of value. And then the private sector led it. The US government gave us a framework. And I have a feeling that's exactly where we are heading over here. Let the forces of the market sort of course correct itself. However, where I think regulation can really play an important role is where regulation has always played an important role, which is removing those biases. So say America has some of the best laws around discrimination based on this category or that category, et cetera. I think that's where law can really play a role, which is upholding those fundamental values in the Constitution.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I hadn't thought of it that way, but that's pretty insightful.
Yeah. So as long as law protects the citizens of the country against, for example, discrimination, et cetera, I think everything else, America's already had lots of innovation is happening. And when we sort of build AI technology and we put it in the hands of our clients, it's just tremendous amounts of thoughtfulness and testing, et cetera, which has happened before we put anything out there. So people are thinking very deeply about this. And I don't think anybody's taking it lightly. And there's a lot of careful evaluation, testing, et cetera, that's happening behind the scenes.
Ashish, talking about kind of careful testing. One of our participants, or actually Connor, one of my coworkers, asked if you've seen any prompt injection attempts with your deployed agents. I guess
Uh,
it fraud attempts, I would assume.
yeah, so far not really, because we have a method in which we first of all identify a person using their cell phone number. So whenever anybody tries to inject with that, interact with our agent, we know their cell phone number. We ask for the cell phone number, then we send them a 6-digit code via text. And then when you get those codes, we use them. So we already know that that's sort of the identity of a person. So we really haven't had any sort of attacks by AI bots into our system, not yet. And with respect to the different intents that we get asked by different members, usually our containment rate is about 70%. So 70% of the questions we already have answers for. And for the remainder of 30%, our team does sort of very careful analysis and figuring out what the prompts need to be, pardon me, to be able to answer those questions. So far, I would say nothing dramatic has happened. But of course, a lot of testing happens on behalf of the credit union or the bank before they even go live.
Appreciate that answer. What question? You talked a little bit about agents before. I presume agents would be one of those things that get pretty impactful in 2025. I listened to a podcast and they're always saying agents are coming, agents are coming. If you had to predict out the next 12 months, I know that's hard to do with AI. What do you see as kind of the technological advancements that credit unions, community banks should be looking at and be thinking about?
I would say the biggest advancement I'm seeing right now is how more and more human-like it's getting, with empathy, with the way humans talk, and really mimicking human behavior. I think there's a lot of advancement happening over there. So if you remember, right, long ago, you called a call center and it says, what are you calling about? And then you gave an utterance or a word, but the voice on the other side was very robotic. It stayed exactly the same. It never showed any emotion. It never showed any sympathy, empathy, none of that. So I think the big thing I'm very, very excited about is sort of the human-like behavior. And I have a feeling that is what is needed for the adoption of AI. Right now, a lot of the AI being developed is a solution looking for a problem, solution looking for adoption. But for adoption really to happen, I think that human element has to get added.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I know there was a study from MIT and Stanford a while back that looked at speaking about empathy and being able to kind of, relate to the person on the other end that's asking the questions. And what the study looked at was whether or not AI could change long held kind of conspiracy beliefs of users. And they found that something like, it was well over 20%, like after they had a session with AI, they would substantially change their long held belief that was a conspiracy. And the reason they assumed that or believed that worked was that AI was very sympathetic and empathy, showed a lot of empathy in having that conversation, that back and forth, and was able to kind of convince the person on the other side that indeed maybe their beliefs weren't what they should be. And that's really valuable when you think about, member or customer service, is having that empathy and being able to kind of relate to someone on the other end. Kind of related to that, one of the companies I think you guys had acquired was around collections. And I've always thought that would be a perfect solution for AI, because, if you're in a financial situation where you've already reached the stage of collections, the last thing I want to do is speak to a human being, right? Just because it's embarrassing, you don't want to have that conversation. But I'd feel a lot more comfortable being able to communicate that with a chatbot or an AI agent, and especially one that showed empathy. Was that your thoughts in acquiring that company? I'm just curious.
You're spot on, Larry. You pretty much read through our thesis of that acquisition. So if you think about collection or paying debt, right? Let's say when somebody takes a loan, you need to make a debt payment, right? I would say 99.9% people in America are very conscientious about taking a loan that they can afford, right? And then when somebody misses a loan payment, it's not that you're a bad person. It's usually a good person going through bad times. And when you are going through bad times, the last thing you want is to explain this whole situation to a stranger. So the reason we made that acquisition is we feel that the whole collections industry is ripe for a disruption. Today, the entire collection industry is about harassing people on phone calls, right? And nobody likes those calls. Everybody hates those calls, but those calls need to happen for the functioning of a financial system, right? But we feel there's a new era over here, which is a self-serve, or we call it self-cure era. So now please imagine you're going through bad times, unable to make a loan payment. However, you still do want to live in that home, right? You still want that car. A lot of times, the people are going through difficult times. The car that they're making loan payment is also the means of livelihood, right? So now please imagine, without talking to a human, you get a text message reminding you have a loan payment due with the link. You click on the link and you go to a page where either you can skip the next payment if you're going through some bad times, or you can enroll yourself into a payment plan, or you can talk to an AI bot which shows empathy, or you can schedule an appointment with a human to call you back. So this whole concept becomes what we're calling self-cure or self-service. And this is where you wait and watch where the industry is going to go.
Yeah, you're giving people a lot of options to solve their problem, right? So that's outstanding. I would also imagine that AI, from a tool standpoint, would be very useful in, obviously from a communication standpoint, but also communicating in any language. Is that one of the functions that you're leveraging for your community banks and credit unions? Because again, members, customers got a lot of different languages, a lot of different dialects. I think that's something that AI excels in. Maybe you can talk a little bit about how you might be utilizing that to address multiple or different language preferences.
Yes, I would say that's one of the big areas of sort of opportunity of improving experience. So for example, I travel around America, and one language, of course, apart from English, that keeps coming up is Spanish. Right. So a lot of credit unions, as you know, work in rural America, sort of the long tail of America. And there is sort of a lot of Spanish speaking people over there. And now credit unions have a challenge. How do you get Spanish speaking staff? Right. It's not easy to find talented staff in sometimes. So now the beauty about AI is being able to, let's say somebody asks a question in Spanish, AI translates that to English speaking agent. The English speaking agent answers that in English, but it gets converted back into Spanish. So allowing this multilingual conversations to happen at scale.
You guys have been in business for how long now? It's been a number of years, right?
Correct. So total company, the genesis of Eltropy is about 12 years old, but our new incarnation, where we focus on credit unions and community banks, is 5 years old.
And you've got something like 600 plus clients. Is that accurate too?
Yes, Larry. Last I checked earlier this morning, it was 691.
That's a lot. What made, so you said kind of a new genesis where you focused on kind of credit unions, community space. What made you take that direction, kind of that directional shift? What were you originally starting out to solve, or what industry were you looking to solve? Was it all financial services? Was it just banking? Was it large banks, and you kind of pivoted? What kind of created that pivot moment for you?
Yeah, so I would say like 12 years ago when we started Eltropy, we were building technology to help salespeople in high tech in Silicon Valley to sell more stuff. So we're a sales enablement company focused on high tech, especially semiconductors, which is where I came from. And then as luck would have it, most amazing things in life happen through serendipity. So you never plan for it, it just happens. So we couldn't execute very well in the high-tech area. And then one thing led to the other, that I stumbled upon a CIO of one of the largest banks in India. And I flew to Mumbai. I showed them the sales technology I had built. And the gentleman said, well, it looks very interesting. But in India, nobody checks email because my technology worked on email. Everybody lives in WhatsApp. Talking about WhatsApp, Larry, a slight digression. Do you know that WhatsApp was invented in America? Hardly anybody in America uses it, but WhatsApp is like God in 65 countries around the world.
I did know that. Very, very popular elsewhere.
So everybody in India lives in WhatsApp. So the gentleman said, hey, Ashish, wouldn't it be nice if we build your technology on top of WhatsApp? And we figured out a way to do that. Then I went back to India, won the first bank, and we grew their revenues tremendously in allowing their salespeople to sell financial products on top of WhatsApp.
Wow.
And then we ended up winning all the top 5 banks in India. Well, the good news about banks in India, they love technology. The bad thing about banks in India, they don't like paying for technology. So I had the top 5 banks making very little money. And I was like, man, if I need to build a large company, let's try something different. So in America, there's this conference called Finovate. So I bought a 7-minute demo slot on Finovate. I went up on the stage, showed them what we'd accomplished on top of WhatsApp in India. And my assertion was this, again, I'm talking 2019. I told everybody, said, listen, today in 2019, people use text messaging to communicate with friends and family. A day shall come, businesses or financial institutions will need to communicate via text with consumers because that's where consumers are. So that's my assertion about 6 years ago, or actually more like 7 years ago. And funny enough, as soon as I finished presenting, 3 credit unions walk up to me and say, Ashish, listen, a lot of our members come to our branches. They ask us, why can't you text us? All we have is our personal cell phones. We really don't have any official way to text. And I'm sure there's a lot of problems with personal texting. Can you give us a solution? And here we go. The rest is all history.
Wow. So from text to video to AI, you've covered it all.
Yeah. So we started the text messaging company, became the best at text. Then we added more communication channels because a lot of credit unions start telling us, Ashish, I have a different system for text, different for video, different for chat, different for voice. Why is it have to be separate? Can you not combine it? And then once we did that, people like, listen, wouldn't it be nice if we can do 24/7 and let's add AI. So little by little, all we did was, Larry, we had the humility of keep listening to our clients and just follow their direction. And our story in some ways is writing itself.
And so in all of that, you've reduced friction for the member and customer as well.
Precisely. And of course, the member and the customer is a big winner in all of this. But I'll tell you, the even bigger winner are employees of the credit union, that they don't have to live in multiple systems. They get all their communication conversation in a single place, aided by AI. And now we're getting ready to load that intelligence layer on top of that that brings everything together.
So it seems like a great solution. Where if people are interested in your company, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Eltropy.com works very, very well. There's a button there, which is to request a meeting. But I'm also very, very active on LinkedIn, as you probably already know. So my name is Ashish Garg. Please find me on LinkedIn and please send me a LinkedIn message. I would absolutely love to engage.
This has been great. Let's see if there are any additional questions. It looks like Victoria already put your LinkedIn profile on out there in the chat. So
wonderful. Yeah, Victoria, well done. That is me indeed.
Any questions? Go ahead and put them in the chat for our attendees. Or we can unmute you as well. All right. So came in question: to what extent are you competing head to head with Gila? Gila.
Yeah, actually, the company's name is Glia, Glia. Okay. And by the way, Gila in Hindi, my mother tongue, means wet. So you picked the right name over there. So short answer is Glia is one of our most prolific competitors. We have tremendous respect for what they do. I think in a lot of our deals, we go head to head. And all I would say is that more often than not, we are able to win against Clear for the very fact that we have a much broader solution and much deeper solution. And we are focused tremendously on credit unions and community banks. And all I would say, Connor, is that in any industry, competition is actually a wonderful thing because it helps you get better. You compete with each other, and usually both companies win. So Gila is winning, Gila is winning, Eltropy is winning tremendously, but they're definitely out there.
Yeah, competition is a good thing for sure.
It's a good thing.
Other questions? It makes you better, right?
Yes. And it's good for consumers.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, if there aren't any other questions, that's going to kind of wrap up today's SRM Perspectives Live event. Appreciate everyone joining us. Oh, there is another question. Could you talk a bit more about how your policies mitigate biases and hallucinations in the use cases or intents where you see them most often?
Yeah, so for this question, it's a little bit more technical above my pay grade. So what I'm going to do is we have a complete Safe AI ebook, which has all this information over here. So what I would like to do is I would like to send that to either Victoria or Larry. Larry, if you can please share that with the audience, that'll be absolutely wonderful. They can scan the QR code, go to the ebook, read it, download it, and also keep it with them.
That's awesome. And then Victoria looks like asked if we could focus on learning, keeping up with just one of the types of AI you mentioned, which would it be and why?
That's a very, very good question. So all I would say, Victoria, right now in AI, the amount of advancement that's happening very, 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 very quickly, it's absolutely staggering what's happening. And to me right now, it seems like it's a 4-horse race. There's OpenAI backed by Microsoft. There is Google Gemini, which is doing a bunch of work out there. Then, of course, Twitter has X.AI under Elon Musk. I think there's some work happening over there. And then there are a bunch of other companies that are using these foundational models and building applications on top of that. So what I do is I keep following the releases. So, for example, Google has their Google Developer World, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many articles and so many advancements out there. That's what I follow, these 2, 3, 4 big players out there, because they're the ones who are truly innovating the fundamental technology. And a bunch of companies, including Eltropy, we are leveraging those fundamental enhancements to build applications to solve certain problems.
Well, thank you for that. Any other questions? I'm seeing lots of heart emojis. All right. Well, want to thank everyone for attending today, and remind you of our next Perspectives Live event will be March 13th. Hope you can join us, and hope this was of use. Ashish, I'll get that name right yet. Really appreciate you coming on, and this has been really informative. I enjoyed the conversation, and hopefully to see you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Larry, just a parting comment. So, are you into James Bond movies by any chance?
I've seen a few. Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah, you remind me of one of the Bonds. Could you please guess which one could that be?
I couldn't even fathom.
I will just leave it at that as a cliffhanger. How about that?
That's good. Maybe I'll have to let our audience guess which one that would be. I don't have a Scottish accent, so I guess it wouldn't be that one.
Yeah, that is the one. That is the one. So,
well, I'll let my wife know. She'll appreciate that.
Definitely. I hope that brings a big smile on her face. So,
well,
thank you very much. And Larry, thank you for being such a wonderful host.
All right. Thanks so much, and a happy Valentine's Day to everyone for tomorrow.
Okay. Bye-bye.